from the meeting. And so for the adoption of the minutes, Kelly is going to move.
Sorry, Molly, I just pressed the button about 10 seconds ago. So before you get into business, maybe we should make sure it's recording.
Okay, I apologize. I forgot. Do you want me to start over, Todd? Was that a yes, I should start over? Well, we've called the meeting to order. No one is excused from the meeting. And so we're just looking at the adoption of the minutes from the April 23rd council meeting. And I believe I had Kelly was going to make a motion on that. Correct, Kelly? Yes. So all in favor? Opposed? No one is opposed. Those motions are carried. Today, are there any post-agenda items? Brian?
Yeah, I have a couple of in-camera, real brief ones.
In-camera legal, did you say?
Well, one is legal, one is intermunicipal.
Okay. And there was another one that I think Mark had also.
It would be an in-camera as well under the intermunicipal.
Okay. So can I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Hubie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We're at question period, notice of motion. And before I proceed any farther into the meeting, I'd just like to give a shout out and say thank you to New Colony, who generously made and donated 100 masks, reusable masks, to our staff. I assume that they just, thank you. So they're both sides. Very good, Todd. Oh, nice. Nice. Well, that is the colony that is led by George Kleinsasser, who he and a number of his members were also in quite a few months ago now to complain about the rates that they had to pay for a development permit, if you recall, because the rates had changed and they'd been caught in between. So that's all it is, to put a face to their name. And so thank you very much, Colony. And they are off the Duck Road to the west, so right on the western edge of our county. Is there anything else for question period or notice of motion? Anyone is aware of? All right. We will move into the agricultural services update. Todd?
All right. Well, there was no questions that came in online, so that was lucky. If something does come up, I'll make sure to push it forward, but I guess that part of the meeting is kind of over for now. So I guess Ag Service Board update, it's been kind of a weird year, and just trying to get everybody set up and geared up and lots of different plans for how we're going to operate this year. So we're going to have staff here every day during the week, but they're going to be kind of in different shifts. So we're just running some longer hours to have people away from the office more than they're in the office, or in the field, sorry. So you might see some changes that way, but I think we're still going to be able to provide good service the way we're doing it. We had a pretty decent strychnine sales spring, lots of gopher populations to take care of, and I think guys did a pretty good job of that. I was actually looking at the numbers this morning, and we sold to 50 different farm groups or producers, and we sold about 1,150 bottles. So kind of ranges from the large producers that have lots of gophers that get 2 cases, right down to the guys that just have a small pocket and only get a few bottles so they can get ahead of them. So it's really kind of nice to see. Imagine if you're driving around, you'll see lots of our county drills moving. They've been rocking for about the last week and a half. They took a break on Monday when it rained, but I think they're all operating and moving. So we do keep those going. Doesn't matter when somebody's finished. If that drill needs to move on a Saturday or a Sunday to get to the next guy, 'tis the season, and we're not going to hold anybody back just for a Sunday brunch. Like I said, our staff have started. We brought on mostly returning staff, but we do have some new faces, and we're happy to have them around. So they did. The wonderful part about having Emerson Bridge Park under our umbrella is that we get to do a lot of training out there. It's away from everybody. There's not a lot of hazards, so everybody gets on a different mower and they learn how to operate it. We do a little bit of spraying and calibrating. It's really a fantastic way to do that. So we did that yesterday, and I think everybody's off to the races today. We're filling up the Emerson irrigation pond right now out of the Red Deer River, and we got our irrigation system set up out here at the yard as well. I'm not sure the next time you guys come to the office, if you ever have to come to the office, if you look directly to the south across our quarter, you'll see our very first hawk nest that we put up. So that's kind of exciting. When Will was trying to find different sites to put them up, it's really hard to get the right distances away from a wetland, away from a residence, away from a road, those kinds of things. But we did find a few. So the first one went up, like I said, about 2 weeks ago, I guess, and then we're actually going to put one up in Rosemary now, the old Rosemary landfill. We have a good spot up there. There's a few gophers and there's nice separations. We'll put one up there. But otherwise, I think weed inspecting starting right away, and we'll have lots of park spraying going on in the very near future. Looks like we're going to start that next Monday. So within the city of Brooks, town of Zano, Grasslands Public Schools, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think we're excited for the spring weather and getting rocking.
Thank you, Todd. Questions? They know you're going to be hanging around all day, Todd, so they can and ask them later, I guess. Thank you, Todd, for that update. Move on to administrative business, the planning and development report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we, as shown on the numbers, our construction permits are down a bit. It looks, when I looked at Statistics Canada overall in March, there was a 12% drop. So it will be interesting to see what permitting looked like in April for all of Canada compared to the County of Newell. So hopefully we see that pick up soon. But we have still been busy with development permits. Shanalee's been talking to a lot of people, and people still want to develop a little bit slower, I guess, than previous years. But we're hopeful that things remain consistent. We have been in contact with a few of the solar companies. Elemental Energy will hopefully submit a development permit sooner than later. I know that they need to start construction as per their AUC approval soon, so we're waiting to see when that comes in. We've also been in discussions with C and B Solar. We've talked to them a little bit. They are working on some things with the AUC as well. And NG, that's the Duchess Solar. They are still making some forward progress. They're doing some studies as far as the glare and dust, and I know they've also talked to Todd about vegetation management, so it's not dead there yet either. Subdivisions were pretty slow in April. We're excited to start processing those directly at the county. Hopefully we'll get our first subdivision soon, fingers crossed. Yeah, and really it's just business as usual in our department. Pam has been working from home. Shannalee and I are in the office a little bit and working from home here and there, but we are staying on top of everything and still providing the same service that we would otherwise. So I hope people continue to call and ask questions.
Thank you, Maria. Any questions for Maria? Seeing no questions, can I have a motion to accept the P&D report? QB moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. I'm just going to look at this chat thing in case. Oh, okay. I think we're good. All right. Potential opening of campgrounds, item 8.2. So that will be Todd and Lane.
So this is a matter that's back before council because we had a discussion previous, and notices had been sent out to all of the campground operations that are actually located on municipally owned land but are operated by community groups throughout the county, letting them know that the campgrounds needed to be closed until further notice. So the government of Alberta has announced a relaunch strategy, and what they are doing with regards to provincially controlled campgrounds is starting to accept reservations the middle of May for bookings the 1st of June. So I guess the discussion that we need to have is whether or not council is wanting to follow the lead of the government of Alberta and have us be in touch with the operators of the campgrounds that are on county-owned land, or if, in fact, we should be looking at basically turning them loose and letting them get started earlier. One thing that should be clear is that all along, campgrounds that have been privately owned, they were able to operate, but they had to operate under the social distancing requirements, which meant that there were reduced capacity and certainly restrictions with regards to public washroom facilities within those campgrounds. So it's not like the campground facilities throughout all of Alberta were closed entirely. The privately owned ones were able to operate during this period of time. But of course, with it being non-camping season, there's been very limited use even of those facilities. So it's just a discussion for council. Are you wanting us to be in touch with those community groups and let them know that they are in a position to proceed with business as usual? And if so, when would that be?
Thanks, Lane. So this is campgrounds like in some of our hamlets, for example.
Correct. We've got 4 of them. So there would be the EID Historical Park, operated by that board, but it's on county-owned land. Rolling Hills has a small campground facility. Tilley has a small campground facility that's operated by the Ballpark Association. And the most recent one would be the Bow City Campground next to the Bow City Community Hall. The county now owns that land, but the Bow City Community Group is operating it. So there's 4 campground facilities in question.
Okay. Any questions for people? Clarence?
So, but like what are the rules? Are we aware of what the rules are so far? I mean, can bathrooms be open if they're cleaned regularly, or what are the regulations as far as cleaning is concerned? I mean, it's never going to be as usual. What are the distances that we have to have? Do we know what the parameters are?
I would defer to Todd on this. He's had a number of conversations with the provincial government representative that's over the camping facilities in the area.
I just want to be cautious what I exactly quote. Sorry, I'm just looking for the exact thing. I thought I had it saved here.
Todd, is that part of the launch?
Yeah, a little bit. I think they had some of that out before. The maintaining the social or the distance between people is very important. Trying to disinfect regularly some of the common areas. I know right off the hop, bathrooms were not and shower houses were not to be open for the public to be used. I think that's probably something that'll still be part of it, at least in the short term. What else was there? I know if we had our water and our sani, so when you have water fill stations, we had to make sure those were cleaned, as well as the sani dump areas had to be cleaned, which is kind of pretty typical anyways, but maybe just not as often, or maybe it'd be more often now. The shared equipment, horseshoe pits, volleyball courts, those kinds of things. Any time where you can have that shared contact, that's supposed to be limited. So I think generally, I think campgrounds will be okay. I think typically when I go camping, I don't often go camping by myself. We usually end up with another family at least. So I think we'll have to be mindful of that when we do, open the parks, or just hope that people take their own lead and keep themselves away from everybody. I know that when we have a couple libations around a campfire, we tend to get a little more social and say hello to our neighbors. So we'll just have to be mindful of that. I think the tricky part's going to be for anybody that has to operate these campgrounds that's on site all the time. They might have to confirm and inform the rules a lot more often than we might want to.
Questions from anyone? QB, is your hand up?
Yes, that was going to be my question, Todd, about policing these areas. And the people that are running it, they're going to have to be there all the time to make sure people are following the rules.
And I think people know the rules, Hubie. It's just, I think we'll probably have to take a little bit of time and develop maybe some quick handouts that go with. I know we're set up for e-transfers for collecting money for not reservations, pardon me, at Emerson anyways. We're set up for e-transfers to collect money for when people book a site or move into their site. So that'll kind of help for contact with cash and checks and that kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe a quick brochure handout of what we expect, and maybe people can use that as well for the park.
All right, I have two other questions or comments. Anne-Marie and Brian.
No, I was thinking we should try to do what the province does, even though some of them are private, that will give less confusion. So all the rules for us, for our campgrounds, the same as what the province does.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Brian?
Good point, Anne Marie. I think that's good things to follow. I guess my not concerns or more recommendations are more revolving around the policing and trying to put the rules in place and have people follow them. I think you can't do. I don't think we can do more than posting them and trying to post what has to be done or what our expectations are. To expect our staff or our campground operators to enforce them, I think it's just going to be a nightmare. We have to assume that people are going to be responsible when they go out there and that they're going to follow the rules. We've given the notification that this is what our expectations are. I think, that when we go beyond that to say, well, we have to put in means to enforce it, I think first of all, we don't have the staff to do it. And second of all, we have to rely on people's good common sense in order to do it. And truly, if they don't want to, they're not going to do it anyway. Like if they're determined to not follow the rules and they are in our campsite, it's pretty hard to not do it.
Lionel.
Well, I agree, Brian, and Marie also. I think we make this and stay consistent with the province. I think there's a lot of benefit to that, and it'll eliminate some confusion maybe for some people. So I think we've followed their recommendations. They have a very good handle on what's going on, and I think we should follow along with that.
So, Todd and Lane, I believe your recommendation was to authorize them to open right away. So, could I hear from you on that idea?
Adhering to the provincial government schedule shouldn't be a problem. I just know that immediately after the province announced their plan for the relaunch of the campgrounds, that Todd had received a number of calls from, I think it was the Rolling Hills operation, wanting to know just what their options were, and that there was interest in getting started here fairly soon. Really what we're talking about is another 3-week delay if they're asked to hold off until June 1st. Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, and I think Lane brings up a good point. There's two different things that we're talking about a little bit. The campgrounds that operate on municipally owned land, and then the one that we operate ourselves, being Emerson, obviously. And I think they're maybe a little bit different in scale. But yeah, so if we wanted to, in my opinion, if we wanted to allow the other user groups like the Rolling Hills Ag Society or the Bow City Community Group to open, they could, but maybe our recommendation be to follow the EID and Alberta Parks in our area and be June 1st for Emerson. Do you know what I mean?
So then, Todd, we would be giving those 4 other groups the option to make their own decision, and we could make our own decision for Emerson, I guess, as well.
We received quite a few phone calls, and I don't want to take away from anybody that has other questions, but we received quite a few phone calls for Emerson and the other parks, but Emerson about, when is it opening? Is it going to be open for the long weekend? Those kinds of things. And these phone calls are from a very wide area of the province. I got a call this morning right before MPC from a guy in Edmonton, had multiple out of Calgary. These are travelers that are coming a long distance. So I'm wondering if we were to open on June 1st with others, it might just help spread out that love of campgrounds instead of everybody converging on the same place.
Yeah, I sort of tend to support that notion because I just was skimming through the relaunch strategy again as you were speaking, and they go through a lot of different things. And one of the things that's still very clear is restrict your travel. So people looking at coming from Edmonton to Emerson, it's interesting. Kevin.
Madam Reeve, I've talked to Todd and Lane internally about this, and I think one of the things that we should consider this year is opening up Emerson to seasonal sites so that we limit the people that come in. I have a real fear that phase 1 of this virus is going to escalate, probably, and I don't know if we want to be into the transient daily rentals of campgrounds, even though they're required to follow the rules. If something changes and it's a private lease, it's no different than the Lions Campground or the campground in Medicine Hat that has tenants there, where you limit the amount of people that come in and leave. So I do think that that's something that we should consider. It does take away from people being able to come in and use it, but we should also keep the washrooms closed, I believe, and a number of things. So it would make people responsible for filling up their own water and sewer. I know Todd mentioned that we have to sanitize that when they fill, but I do want council to give that some consideration because that is new to us. But I do believe it will limit us to, potentially having to change midstream if something happens in June or early July. We would have, a number of tenants, and there may not be a lot of people that take that up, but there may be too.
Okay. Other comments? Anne-Marie and Clarence and Ellen.
So I'm willing to make the motion that we go with option 2, that we still go with the same schedule as the provincial government, and then maybe just leave it up to staff how they want to control the camping. If they want to go seasonal or they want to go day by day, I don't know if we need a motion for that.
Thank you. So we have a motion to go with option 2 that Anne-Marie made. Clarence.
So I know that people, like, if I'm talking from the Rolling Hills point of view, know they'll be interested in running it, but are they aware of how it's going to have to be run? And are they still willing to do that? I mean, it's a source of revenue for the hamlet. And so I can understand that. But, are they prepared to keep the bathrooms closed? Are they prepared to do extra sanitization on the water fill and that type of thing? And all those, whatever additional stuff that has to be done. And if they aren't, is the option there not to open? Because we rely on those people to follow the guidelines, and sort of some of it is not enforcement, it's just having to do it.
Thanks, Clarence. I have a question just here. So the 4 locally run ones could make their own decision not to ever open this summer if it's too much for them, correct?
That's right. We can't force them to operate. We can certainly provide some guidance for them. I think that you're in a position through our lease, and given the circumstances that we're in province-wide, to suggest that they shouldn't be operating if that's the position that council's wanting to take. But if it's clear that they are going to be authorized to open on June 1st, they have to clearly adhere to the provincial requirements that are in place.
And so, Lane, we would have some responsibility to make sure that they are aware of those restrictions, Stan. What that means, as Clarence, there's a lot more work involved.
Well, the notice that we would provide them is that in accordance with the provincial government's relaunch strategy, they would be in a position to start operating their campground, but they have to understand that they have to meet the requirements that are in place by the provincial government for the operation of those facilities. I don't think that we want to place ourselves in a position where we would be the ones that are going out to check and make sure that they are adhering to those standards. I don't think that we have those resources.
No, we've never interfered with their operations, so it wouldn't be now to start. Ellen, you were next, and Wayne.
I just had a problem with the audio, so, I don't know what it is, if people have their microphones on, but sometimes it's almost inaudible.
I think we all probably lose a little bit of few words every now and then. I certainly am. Wayne.
The one in Scandia here is a problem because they've got a lot of people who park their trailer all winter. I went by a week ago and it's almost full. Now, there was people out there camping. I never even thought about it. I went and got my mail and I drove home. Never even occurred to me, but I think we should make contact with the EID Park and let them know what the rules are, because I'm not sure that things are going the way it should be out there. So
it's quite possible some of them are open. This might be a conversation that doesn't need to be occurring. All right. Of a motion on the floor from Anne Marie to schedule the opening of locally controlled campground facilities to coincide with the schedule for provincially controlled facilities, which would be the date. Is there any further discussion on that? Well, then I will ask the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And I guess, as Lane pointed out, they will be notified, the people that look after these parks, and these people older volunteers in the community, or is there a young bunch of people that look after these parks? Lane, I'm just curious.
Lane is quite a bit. Lane probably knows better.
Well, there's been a passing of the guard in some of the groups. Bow City has got some new individuals involved in the executive there. I know that the Tilley Ballpark Association, which operates the Tilley Ball Diamonds and the campground, they also underwent a change in their executive here probably 2 years ago. I think that the group in Rolling Hills and the EID Historical Park, there's some board members that are still involved there that have been for a number of years.
So a bit of a mixed bag. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 8. Oh, sorry, Kelly?
So I wanted to pick up on Kevin's suggestion. I don't want that to be missed. His recommendation was to make Emerson Bridge a seasonal campground this year, or at least that's what I think I heard him say. So I think we should discuss that and that follow through with that if that's the way you all agree.
Thanks, Kelly. Kevin, was that a recommendation for the whole park to be seasonal?
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be is that we open it up to seasonal to start with at whatever rate council felt was reasonable. I know Todd has a monthly rate there, but I know that the other seasonal campgrounds aren't being offered this year. I don't think the EID has done theirs. So that will open up the monthly or the nightly spots for people. But I do believe that the risk of us operating a seasonal campground with the same tenants is going to be easier, better, and safer with the bathroom facility closed than it would be to have people coming and going. I think policing is going to be very difficult because we only have the 2 officers and they can only be at one spot at one time. So I think logistically, I don't know what the interest would be, But, you know, if you threw it on there for 2,500 for the summer, for maybe some of the lots need to be a little less if they're less attractive, but you might end up with 70, 60, 70 of them that get taken by people that are going to look after them, and then you limit the amount of exposure. I would keep the bathrooms closed. I would make people responsible to sanitize the lift or the dump station and the fill station if they use it, and run it that way. But I know it's a one-off, but I think it's important that we try to limit the exposure of the spread.
Thank you for that. Anne-Marie and Wayne.
Well, I made that motion and the motion passed, but I'm not sure if Ariana put as part of the motion that staff could fill in the details, because I agree with Kevin, it's a good suggestion, but I don't want to micromanage. Like I can see where each campground will be a little different. So if you guys want to do it a certain way with Emerson, doesn't mean that Rolling Hills will do the same. So you know, that's what I meant as part of the motion, but maybe direction is good to just leave the motion the way it is if it wasn't included, and then direction would be, you know, you do what you think you need to do.
Thanks, Anne-Marie, and I probably wasn't included because I read it right off schedule 2 from our agenda, and I forgot about that other discussion until Kelly reminded us. But yeah, certainly direction would be good for our staff. And you know, it's not like if we say, let's look at seasonal for a start, it doesn't mean we can't change that partway through. We're in charge, so if we find that we had a bunch of seasonal people interested, that would be great. I think we're still going to have to deal with hard and fast seasonal to start and see how that goes, perhaps. Somebody else had, Wayne, was it your hand? And Kelly.
I wanted to know how many lots or campsites would we put out down in Emerson, and what is the distancing between them? So.
Todd?
Well, we currently have 65 sites at Emerson, but that includes the group camping overflow. If I remember the numbers sort of correctly, it's 49 powered sites and 8 non-powered sites, and then the others are the overflow. We got the one great part about Emerson is the big beautiful trees and the big beautiful sites. So we have lots of separation between our campfires, our campers. It's just when they're out and about doing camping things.
So Todd, I take that answer to mean that most sites would be appropriate the way they are. I mean, there might be a few that would have to be blocked off, but for the most part, our sites are, as you said, quite private.
Yeah, I think the only thing we would have to do would be to, you know, when we do go down the whatever road we take, I guess, just maybe limit it to 1 camper per site, whether it be seasonal or just overnight stayers. Which is one of the downfalls, because Emerson has got those big, beautiful sites that we usually try to pile in a family on one site.
Yes, and you know what? I think we're the last remaining standing park that does that. So to be like everyone else in our community wouldn't be that outrageous.
Right.
Wayne and Kelly. Or Wayne, you had your question answered, I believe. Where did you go? You're up here now. Kelly. Kelly, down here.
So I agree with Kevin's suggestion. There are all ranges of people and what they call home for the weekend, right? from the tent to the diesel pusher motorhome, and some of those homes for the weekend or for the week don't have bathroom facilities or accessible or workable, or maybe they're blocked off from use because they don't like emptying them, whatever. So I think the seasonal idea is a great safety measure. I could see damage to our bathrooms. I could see people breaking into them to get access to them. I can see messes behind the trees, around the trees that staff may have to deal with. And so I would like to make a motion, and we have time for staff to come back with rates and suggestions. I would like to make a motion that we make Emerson Bridge Campground, offer it for seasonal camping this summer. And have staff with rates. Mm-hmm.
Seasonal only, Kelly?
Yes.
All right, Kelly has made a motion that would be for seasonal only. Any thoughts or questions? Brian?
Yeah, I wouldn't support that. I agree with the possibility of opening up to seasonal type campgrounds, but and having that as something that's an option for people. But to close the rest or to limit the rest of the campground to only seasonal, really, there could be very few people that are consider that as an option. And you know, I think with a manager that we have down there, there could be some utilization issues when it comes to tents, like you explained, Kelly, and maybe we only limit it to people that have bathroom facilities in their campers. The seasonal option I agree with, but it shouldn't be just exclusively seasonal.
Thank you. Lionel?
Well, I agree. And Anne-Marie also made the suggestion that our staff can make those decisions and perhaps even change them along the way. And that we should try to micromanage this thing and leave our staff to deal with it. They're boots on the ground. They're there every day, so, or whenever necessary. So I do agree that we should the staff and not put something in place that try to abide by.
All right. And any other thoughts? I guess I sort of feel, just to flat out only, I too would like staff who are on the ground to deal with that. I think we need to give them the freedom to see what works. Any other comments? All right. If not, I'll call the question on Kelly's motion. Oh, Brian?
Well, Kelly's motion was for exclusive seasonal camping. So again, I can't support that, so I would vote against it. I'm just wondering if you want to continue with that or you want to amend it, Kelly. It's up to you. I mean, I'd make a new motion if you want to defeat it. It doesn't matter.
Kelly?
Yeah, let's go ahead with the motion, and then you can reword it, Brian. Let's just carry it through.
Okay, the motion would be to limit Emerson camping to seasonal, correct, Kelly? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is not carried, is defeated. And so, Brian, did you want to put forth a different motion?
I put forward a motion, excuse me, for the option for seasonal, and then follow the direction and recommendations for our staff to proceed with other utilization of the campsites.
And we're talking Emerson.
Yes.
All right, everybody clear on that? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So seasonal is on the agenda for sure, as a first option perhaps, but we'll let Todd and his staff and admin figure out where it goes from there. Okay, we'll go on to checks for payment, item 8.3. And I did have a question. Under C, Clearview Farming medical gloves. I was just curious about that one.
We'll have to dig up the details on that. I'm guessing it's part of the PPE equipment that has been purchased. I can track down all the detail.
Any other questions? Anne-Marie?
My question is about direct registry, and it's just a funny one. At the end, it has SR fax, and it's an amount of $60.48. And I'm not sure if that's monthly or only once for fax services.
Yeah.
So SR Fax is an online fax service that we have gone to. Good question on monthly versus annual. Let me get the details on that one too.
Yeah, because that's interesting. You can have my fax machine, that big square bulky thing if you want.
It'll just be used as a boat anchor.
Kevin?
Thanks, Madam Reeve. So the gloves that from Seaview Farming Limited were ordered by Stuart Lucci's and signed off. And there was 3 sets, medium, large, and extra large.
And those would have been PPE for the firefighters.
And then the next item is SR Fax. There's a monthly payment to them every month. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I heard that, but I'm just a little bit surprised that we pay, $700 a year for fax service. It's whatever you think you need. It doesn't matter.
Well, the fax service is routing, so it can be emailed and then it goes directly to staff. It's not just a fax machine. So it's a digital service.
I have a feeling they probably still get faxes from people like John Douglas too.
Not many.
No, because faxes are still something that some people can do. They can't scan and email and all that other stuff. Question about the Clearview thing. So Lane, gloves purchased for the use of the Clearview colony fire people, or I'm confused by that somehow.
No, they would have been purchased from a Clearview, and they were gloves for the volunteer firefighters.
Oh, okay. Any other questions on that? Otherwise, can we get a motion to accept the payment register? Tracy? Do you have a question, Tracy, or you have a question? No, you're going to make a motion. No? You are. Tracy wants to make a motion so she can participate in the meeting. Yay, Tracy. Tracy has made that motion to accept the payment register. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Are there any requests for functions of council? No. We have some reports for after. I guess we better take a break for lunch. Is it noon? Is it time for lunch, guys? Kelly? Yes? 5 more minutes? Is it 5 to 12? My clocks are all different. Okay, we'll keep going then. NRC report, item 9.1. Any questions on that? Brian?
So have there been direction to the, I think it was Lake Newell Hamlet, to not flush their wipes down the toilet?
I hope so.
Well, I hope that that's made clear to all our Hamlet users that, you know, that sort of stuff is not, it's not part of our septic system. So I know it seems a no-brainer, but if it's happening, it's obviously our no-brainer and the Hamlet users are two different things then.
Well, I did notice the city of Brooks had a big ad in the paper, and that was one of the things that they had. It was about sewage and what sewage systems should be used for. And at the time I thought, well, that's interesting, wipes. And then next thing I read about Lake Newell. So any other questions or comments from the Hamlet? Okay, and is Mark online here? Mark, are you there?
Mark's actually tied up in another conference call right now.
Okay. So we'll wait until after to accept municipal reports. Good. We'll do the letter of support. That's a fairly straightforward.
Get the total of 5. I'm here.
Oh, okay. We'll go back to your report then, Mark.
Sorry, I've got 2 meetings going on at the same time here, one teleconference and council.
Mark, you don't have to do it right now if you don't want to.
No, I'm good. They're wrapping up on the other end here. So you want to start with the report then?
Yeah, just the highlights. We've got it all here in front of us. So.
Okay, grader operators, full swing of road grading. Obviously, frost is still coming out of the ground, so conditions are soft on our gravel roads. And that's throughout the region. Obviously, the south is a little bit better than the north, as they've had warmer weather longer. Stockpiling program, as per my report, I said was 95% complete. It is complete now. Drivers are now putting efforts on spot graveling, frost boils and soft spots on our roads and washouts. Annual street sweeping program for the hamlets is complete. That was done the week of April 22nd. I know there were 1 or 2 concerns iterated to the office. It was a different contractor this year, different style of street sweeper. It was being judged that it wasn't as thorough or as well done as in the past, but it did meet our expectations. Following that, dust abatement program application ended April 30th for the subsidized rates for residential applications. With that, currently for 2020, we are sitting at 268 applications. Comparably in 2019, 307, 2018, 287, and 2017, 248. Now, those numbers were not part of my report. Those are numbers I was able to pull together before this meeting. Highway 876 partnership on paving, that work is about to kick off. We know that poor road conditions on the northerly 2 miles has been present due to some reconstruction and stuff, but that's just some of the pains of getting through to the final destination of a lovely non-band paved road in partnership with the province. One Tree Road rehabilitation, we're moving into tender preparation stages with ISL Engineering. With that, there are 2 bridge files that we've identified that potentially need to be improved and or replaced along One Tree Road before we do an overlay. So that's being investigated to look to take place the winter of 2020-2021 in advance of pavement overlay scheduled for 2021. We're also going to be working on, if you head east of the interchange at the Shell station leaving Brooks, there is a 90-degree corner to the north following that down towards Sagebrush Estates Development. We're going to be working with the landowner to see if we can't turn that into a true speed curve. We know that there's been a number of accidents due to motorists failing to adhere to the signage and just missing the corner and driving into the ditch. So looking to see what improvements we can do there, and as part of budgeting process, we would bring that back to council for approval. 15th Avenue, 2nd Street West, Highway 873, the intersection lighting there, the traffic control devices as you are southbound entering the city of Brooks from Dutchess territory. That work is, site design is underway and construction tender expected to be late June. And what else we got here? Hamlet of Lake Newell Resort, landscape improvements to the roadside ditches and some drainage swales that are the responsibility of the county. On-site meeting took place May 4th, and work is looking to ramp up in the next couple of weeks. Crack sealing program, that is underway with, I believe it's not Federal this year, Molly. It's a different company, so I know you love Federal so much. It is a different company this year, but they did kick off work there May 4th due to weather, rain on the roads and stuff like that. They had to postpone a little bit, but they should be going full bore here. And we always do crack sealing before we do the line painting, because a number of our roads, if we did the line painting first, the line paint would be covered up by black crack sealant. So that's set to take place following crack sealing. Request for proposals for long-term aggregate supply is underway. So this is part of our exploration and resource securement strategy within the department. So looking forward to that getting put out there and see what kind of firms and interest we get. Data collection of Texas gates throughout the county has taken place. We're trying to tie down Texas gate agreements with landowners. Where there aren't, we will be chasing adjacent landowners for that information to get all of that wrapped up, something that's been on the list for many, many years. All the information is there for municipal enforcement. Maybe something a little bit different for council is fleet services. As you can see, we've had 2 significant issues happen with 2 separate machines in our grading fleet. With that, 2 different manufacturers attributing some of that to age, although I'm disappointed in that. It's nothing that was really under our control through preventative maintenance or anything that we could have avoided. However, based on the cost of those repairs, it is still significantly less than what we would have been going through to replace those machines on a 5-year turnaround based on the current resale values of those. So they will be having the engines worked on and other matters repaired and being put back into service. And we will revisit those costs per hour on all of those machines and find out where we are with that and making sure we're making good, sound decisions on our fleet. Additionally, myself, our 2 CPOs, John and Devin, and some other staff assisted in the setup of the Alberta Health Services testing facility at the north end of Brooks. That was a very good success over the 3-day event. The numbers spoke for themselves, which everybody's heard through the media and City of Brooks Facebook sharing and stuff. Definitely great to work with everybody and collaborate on making that happen. In addition to that, the last statistic is just rolled in the other day, we had a whole 29 permits for the permit activity report through the month of April. We obviously know that that's attributed to the global pandemic that is going on and a lot of things being slowed down, if not completely shut down. Other than that, if there's any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Questions, Brian?
I have two questions. One, with the fleet replacement on the enterprise lease, have you guys realized any of the buybacks yet and how have they fared?
No, we have not been able to move those units yet. Enterprise is looking at the markets due to the global matter. A lot of the way that they were doing resales and stuff like that were not capable of taking place. And I meant to send out an email yesterday, and I just didn't get it out to when we can expect to see that get back to a new normalcy, to see those vehicles listed and start seeing some returns on that, so we can more evaluate that program.
Okay, thanks. The second question is on, and I know you've talked before, I just need a reminder about the new pavement that's going in on 876. There's that bridge partway down, and I drove that in the last 2 weeks, and it just strikes me that that's not wide enough. What is the recommendation from engineering on that bridge?
That bridge file was looked at the planning stages of all of that. It was determined between ourselves and Alberta Transportation that that bridge file will remain as it is until its life expectancy is realized and replaced at that time. It's going to feel tight, but it's passable for two larger units to pass, just so long as they're not over-dimensional and having to take up the other directions lane in their travels.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
You bet.
Other questions for Mark? Clarence?
Now that we're keeping the graders a little longer, and I wonder how you're going to determine when is the right time to get rid of them. If it's like cars, you always keep them one fixed too long.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're going to have to navigate. We're kind of in new territory for ourselves because the past practice was every 5 years we saw a new machine. We know other municipalities have kept their machines longer, and it'll be a matter of working with them to understand what they've encountered, how they look at those matters and move forward. I know I had a fairly good conversation there with Special Areas team a couple of years back when I first identified this in discussions. And they said lots of times companies just have the machine completely rebuilt because the iron cost is a huge cost. So there's a big frame that everything sits on is a big cost and really subject to increases through tariffs and all kinds of stuff between countries and manufacture. Mining sector, it's an absolute that they just rebuild the machine every 10,000 hours. But we're going to have to watch those hourly rates across the board, and if there's a couple machines that start exceeding what that average is, then we're going to have to start looking at approaching council on philosophies or replacement strategies.
Hubie, did you have a question?
Shoulder pulls around Division 2, Mark. Those will all be gravel with 3/4 crush in the next couple months?
Yes, they will be under review again this year for gravel needs, just as we have done in the past with every other shoulder pull. And I know Al's out there driving around right now. That rain event that we experienced, that was one of those nice, steady rains. It wasn't a downpour where most of the water runs off. It was nice, steady, saturated in. A lot of our roads got soft just because of something like that, and that's kind of to be expected. But yes, those roads are all under review again this spring.
Anyone else that I've missed? Can I get a motion to accept the municipal reports? Lionel will move. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So we'll leave off there. Item 10.1, for after lunch at 1 o'clock. Will that work for everyone? Yes? All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good lunch.
Yep, you too.
So we're good to go, Todd?
Should be good. It's still thinking a little bit here, but
Okay.
there you go. You're good to go.
All right. I'll call the meeting back to order. And we are at item 10.1 of our agenda, a request for a letter of support from Canadian Solar, the Tilley project, AUC application.
So this one came up during a conversation that I had with Ian Sanchez. He's one of the fellows that's involved with the Tilley site. There was a couple things that we were having a discussion about during his phone call, but I asked him what the status of their project was, and he had stated that they went through making some minor modifications to the scope of their project and submitted an amended application to AUC. And under normal circumstances, those amendments are really quite routine and are dealt with by AUC without there being any problems. What they've been doing since they received their initial approval is continuing with their wildlife studies. And the most recent wildlife study indicated that there was a hawk nest that had been established in relatively close proximity to the site. And because of that, Alberta Environment has taken the position that their support for the project has moved from a moderate risk to a high risk project. And as soon as Alberta Environment stated that, AUC yanked their original approval and has forced them to go through the whole approval process again. So it has significantly delayed their project from going ahead. They are still going through the AUC application process. They've got a significant investment that has already been incurred. Of course, County Council or MPC has granted an approval for it. And they're just open to the possibility of Council providing a letter of support they would be able to provide or submit to AUC, underlying the need for projects of this nature because of the economic spin-offs that will be felt throughout the community, particularly during this difficult time. So if Council is interested or willing to provide a letter of support, it would certainly be appreciated. And that's really the nature of the request that has come from them.
So, Lane, you mentioned this is close to what was lots of activity last summer, which had no concern at that point.
Correct. And this is what Ian pointed out, is that the real irony is that the nest that is of concern is on the east side of Highway 876. And 876, of course, was the subject of regrading and reconstruction last summer. It's now going to be subject to paving and lots of additional activity this summer. 876, of course, is between the hawk nest and the C&D Solar construction site, and if anything is going to have a bigger impact on the nest that's there, it could be the paving project, and yet the solar project is being held up because of it. So highway projects don't have to meet the same level of standard when it comes to environmental approval that other non-highway projects do.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, guys? Lionel and Anne-Marie?
Well, I don't understand why there's so much scrutiny against these projects. I mean, we've had many business proposals in the county in the past that don't have to go through these hoops every time. And so I would definitely agree with giving them a letter of support if that has any benefit for them at all, because I am fully in favor of this thing moving ahead.
Thanks, Lionel. Anne-Marie?
That's what I was going to say too, and it sounds like Lionel made a motion, so I'm good.
Any other discussion on Kelly?
So I hesitate because we are stepping in front of AUC when we've been told that we step behind AUC in the past. So I'm just wondering if we're not setting ourselves up for future requests where a solar company would like to include our support before AUC comes. We've used AUC as our reasons and our supporting and guiding light in the past. We're trying to guide AUC, so I'm hesitant. I'm actually not in favor of sending a letter for those reasons.
Any other comments? Lane, is there any concern about getting involved in this process of the expectations going forward? I mean, this seems like a rather unique situation where there happens to be a nest and a road involved in working on. So any other comments from you?
And I appreciate Councillor Christmas' comments. I guess a couple things to emphasize. First of all, AUC had granted approval to the project, and we didn't intervene during that review process for their initial approval. After AUC's approval, MPC granted approval, so the process was as it should have been. Then AUC rescinded their approval, and I think all that we're suggesting is that given the fact that there was an approval already in place from both levels, AUC and the county, a letter of support to proceed on the basis of those original approvals is in order. I think under normal circumstances, you would not want to be getting involved trying to influence the outcome of an initial AUC review approval process. This one's a little different because they already have one in place.
Okay, so given that slower speech, I appreciate that. I missed that detail. I can go with this now. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, then I'll call the question. All in favor of writing a letter situation? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Lane, for looking after that. Going on to the rest of the agenda, there is information items, the financial information package. April is there. Minibus report, which of course has a sort of new role these days with delivering groceries. Upcoming community events, if there aren't any. So that takes us to, I believe, Ariana, have we covered everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. All right. We need a motion to move in camera. Anne Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried, and so we are in camera. Mr. Green, moderator.
All right. We had 6 people viewing today on the live stream, so 2 less than last time. But I'm just going to go ahead and end it. So if anybody has any questions, I guess they can email them to us separately. But we had no questions coming off the live stream today.
Okay.